Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Headmaster's Homeroom. I am Lady Hamilton. I'm excited to be with you again this Friday evening. We have a fantastic guest that I am excited to present to you tonight. So I welcome everybody. It's always great to have you come and see me on Fridays. So I want to start this right off with one of our sponsors, so we can get to our guest who's already here. So you guys know how much I love honey. I am so thrilled. This is some of the best honey in the world, and you guys might just be thinking I'm saying that, but I have been around the world, from South Africa to Ethiopia to Australia to Mexico to Cuba to whatever, and then even local states. And I use honey all the time. I don't even have sugar in my house. And you guys have seen me cook with it on Sundays. And you guys know I've done home remedies with this as well. And our honey is actually, I mean, look at this. This is the raw honey. Look at how beautiful this is. And our wonderful producer, Scott, who's from Maui, tells us that there is this gorgeous mile-long stretch of flowers, that just producing this amazing stuff. Look at this one. This is the dragon fruit. Look at how awesome these and how big they are. I'm just so excited. And then, of course, my new favorite. You guys have seen me use these a lot for home remedies. Look at how much I've already used already. This is the turmeric one. I told you I'm going to have to get more because I'm going through this like crazy. Turmeric's so great for us. Great for inflammation. And I was really surprised at the taste. It's not overpowerful at all. It's just some of the best honey I've ever had in my life. So you guys can really help us out. Help out our platform, and help out our wonderful producer who gives us this amazing platform to speak to you. And so it is Be Nourished. So I'm going to play you their commercial so everyone knows. One of our sponsors tonight is, and always, right, is Be Nourished. So you guys, please check them out.
Honey. It's one of the greatest gifts to man. With millions of wildflowers in every bottle, the nourishing power of honey is still yet to be fully discovered. Be Nourished Healing Products combines healing ingredients from around the planet to the purest honey from the island of Maui to bring magic to your taste buds. The best honey from the most beautiful place to nourish your body, mind, and soul. From our hearts to yours, be nourished.
All right, everyone, we're back. So again, you get 22% off when you use the code Liberty. And I am just so extremely thankful for our wonderful sponsor. And again, I told you this is some of the best honey. I'll be using it again this Sunday. I've got some more home remedies coming for you guys that we're going to be working on. And I love using our actual sponsors' products as well. So that is a great outlet. And another way that you can help us out, I'm always joking, somebody buy my producer a coffee, but that's just the way I say it. I mean, absolutely love our wonderful producer. And you can buy us a coffee. So it's buy me a coffee / Scott Adam. And somebody buy us a coffee, right? I mean, it helps us out, and we continue to bring you this wonderful, beautiful news or programs, or I love to bring solutions. And we are so thankful to our producer, Scott, for doing this. So thank you. And that really helps us out. All right, everybody, welcome. I love to bring you solutions. I love to bring you people from around our wonderful nation who are doing different things, different businesses. And I have people that are collaborating between each other. And it just makes me so excited because, I mean, it's one of the reasons I wanted this show. I kept hearing so many times on different things and outlets, what are you doing in your community? And then I never saw anybody get highlighted for what they're doing in their community. And you guys all have maybe heard me say this before when we were invited to CPAC. My main, thing was to go and meet the guests and get to know them and find out what they were doing. And I'm so thankful I've been able to bring you so many wonderful guests from that event. But this guest tonight, I did not meet at CPAC, believe it or not. So if there is any litter mates out there that are watching me tonight, this is how I met our guest and how she has done some amazing embroidery for this. So I was so excited to see her work, speak to her on a note from my own school. It just blew me away, the abilities and the designs that she has. And I'm so excited to bring a great new friend on to promote what she is doing and to show you guys that you could start anything. I mean, we've done this before where we have brought you how to do business plans. We'll probably be doing that again for everybody, how to start a business. But you guys can do amazing things in your own communities, from opening up just a group in your library for free, doing something, at your gardening. You guys can open up an actual business. And I love being able to teach you how and bringing you these different guests that are going to tell us how. So before we actually invite her in, I want to read her bio from her website, everybody. So this is going to be Kind Embroidery. And Barb is our guest. And this is her wonderful bio. All right. It says 30 years ago, her dad saw an industrial embroidery machine in action. Being a farmer for the majority of his life, he had always worked very hard. As he watched the machine run, he thought to himself, what a great way to work smarter, not harder. A few months later, we had a machine and I was off to the races to learn how it all worked. The first couple of years were intense to say the least. We learned very quickly that we needed to learn how to digitize, convert art into stitches. Also, sewing on a curved surface could be tricky since we really wanted to focus time on selling hats. We knew we had a lot to learn. I went to trade shows that offered training in both California and Texas until finally I found an expert in New Jersey that offered a boot camp style training. This expert had created stitch files for Disney, the NFL, NBA, Warner Brothers, and so many more. So I headed off to the Big Apple for training. I spent 10 days, 10 hours each day of intense training. When I came home, I was eager to put my lessons to work. I had honed my skills by digitalizing any art I could get my hands on. As life has gone along, I have digitized over 100,000 different stitch files. I've created a stitch file for companies that have sought out licensing to sell their branded products with the NFL, NBA, PGA, and achieved approval to do so. After having spent a great deal of time working for corporate America creating stitch files, I decided it was time to get to work for myself. The American dream was my first priority. I took the leap and started with an Etsy shop in 2020. Now my business is growing, so I've officially created this website that I will show you guys later. I am looking forward to getting to know each new customer. I welcome you one and all. Let's start designing great customer products. I offer many types of embellishments, screen printing, sublimation, DTF, hand-folded custom tie-dye, and embroidery. So whatever your budget, we will find a project that meets your needs. And I absolutely love that. So we are going to welcome Barb to our stream. Hi, Barb. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can. Just great. Just great. Okay. So first of all, like I said, if there's any litter mates or gems out there, this is how we met, right? She was actually showing off what she made jewels, and I was like floored. And I reached out to her for the school. Next thing you know, days and weeks later of conversation, I'm like, she's amazing, everyone. Barb, welcome to our show. It is such a pleasure.
Oh, you're amazing, Moira. Thank you so much. You're such a gracious individual. I really appreciate your time and just your friendship. My word, I'm just like very humbled and grateful that you'd have me on. I appreciate you.
It's truly a pleasure because, I was even offered this platform so that I could do this kind of thing. It was really alarming to me that nobody was showing what we're doing in our communities. They want to scream that we're do something, but, we all are all around the nation. I mean, whether it's political or just business or something, 2020 hit us all differently. But, I never saw anybody highlighting us across the nation. So I'm so thankful to my producer that I get to do this. So
well, I'm grateful too. Thanks, Scott.
Right?
Much appreciated.
Right. And so tell us, first of all, I read your bio, but what really was kind of a kick, and tell us a little bit about your company and stuff too, because this is all about highlighting you. But you said in 2020 that you wanted to start a business for yourself. Was it because of COVID and you couldn't work for corporate, or you just said, I've had
Well,
enough and I
well,
want to pursue
2020 was
myself?
interesting for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
floor is yours.
Did mean sorry about interrupting. But well, I had a stroke. Now this is interesting. September 28th of 2018. And it a minor stroke, whatever, but it actually was on the heels like 4 days later uh, of a jab with a flu shot. So I don't know. It just kind of I find it interesting now with everything that's come forward on the COVID issue. So yeah, it did have a lot to do with COVID. Once we just also had to move. So I moved 150 miles back to my hometown, and a lot of that had to do with my parents getting older and just wanting to be close to them. And we'd lost my grandmother, so it was time. And yeah, lucky for me, I ended up back in my small rural town to approach this COVID thing that we were up against and pushed into. And
Right.
man, what a nightmare. But I knew that there's no way in the world that I would have been able to survive, Moira, if I would have kept working for corporate America. They might have even thrown me in jail. I'm not one to just bow down and just do something because somebody said so. You know,
Right.
I'm way more free thinking than that. You can't just tell me without proof that something's going to be good for me. I mean, that'd be like, here, eat this turd. It tastes real great. No,
Right.
thanks.
Right. Well, I personally, the one of the reasons I started mine online, my school online and not in a building is because I felt like who I'm not a doctor. I'm not
Yeah.
saying anything against it. If you want to take a vaccine or not, or whatever you want to do with your health, you do
Yeah.
that. That should be something between you and a doctor. As a business
Right.
owner, right? I
Yeah.
don't want to be mandating you putting something in your body and then you sue me. Right? That should be
Right.
fully, and I'm not qualified to tell you what to do. So,
Well, and in hindsight now, looking at the company that I had been working for, uh, yeah, it's a good thing
right,
I left. It's a good thing, God was looking out for me in that respect because, the way things happen, every purpose there is a season, right? And it was my season to come home, and I had to come and get busy down here. A lot of local businesses can't afford embroidery, so I make it affordable. Even though I I might cut out a little bit on my time, it still gives these smaller businesses an opportunity to promote themselves without that big high. Look, I ain't looking to get rich. That's not. I'm rich in love. I'm rich in family. That's good and well enough for me, but I still have to pay the bills.
right,
So therefore, and I'm really all about using my hands. If my hands are not busy, I go crazy.
right,
So I have to do something, and I just happen to be real talented with embroidery. I did it by hand as a young child. I was a most outstanding 4-H member in our county for like 4 years running, and I really had my hands in everything. I did cake decorating, crochet, needle, everything. I did it all. Anything that was available, I was out looking to keep my hands busy and my mind busy too. But anyway, so I'm glad to be back. I'm really glad that I can offer these smaller businesses. Like I said, a lot of people can't afford it. And I
right,
think it's nonsense. There should be an affordable margin where everybody can benefit from having a good quality product. You get lots of times somebody will give you a screen printed something hat or whatever, and yeah,
right. It's
goes
not the
over the
same.
shoulder. in the back seat, oh, thanks, I appreciate it. It's great. Yeah, it's got your but boy, if you get given an embroidered product, it is a whole different ballgame. People love embroidery and almost as much as I do. And I say almost as much because I get into the nitty-gritty of it all. I'm blowing the designs up by 2,000% and doing, a millimeter size stitch to get those real fine details. But
Well, you're an
it's a
artist.
lot of fun.
Right,
Hey,
but you're an artist. I tell
that's
everybody
why I
the
love
art is
talking
not
to
just
you. You
painting, right?
understand?
I mean, everyone kind of thinks that. Well, art, because our schools are integrated, and I can't wait to introduce you to students, but people just think that art's painting, and it's not. There's so many
And not just
fields,
so
right? So
many.
many fields,
Well, I
and I
did. You
love.
mentioned in the beginning from my bio about custom tie dye, and
Yes,
and I have to tell you, a lot of stigma around tie dye in general. Uh, Goes along a lot with the hippie movement. I've been called hippie, so many times, and I'm really like way younger than that generation, so it's kind of like, no, I'm not a hippie, but I am a great tie-dye artist, and it's art. Like when
yes,
you spend that much time doing anything, whether it's weaving a dream catcher, doing some tie-dye, doing painting, that's art.
right,
I know guys that go out to the junkyard and get parts and pieces from broken down everything and weld them all together and make something beautiful. So there's just so many avenues you can go down.
right. Oh, I absolutely agree. And when I was in college too, I mean, it was the biggest department in the whole entire school. It had 16 under departments underneath it, just under arts. And people don't realize, like advertising, they don't think advertising is art. It's the biggest art form there is, as
Yeah.
far as money, at least wise, right? But it's one of the
Well, yeah.
biggest businesses in the world, and it's considered an
Yeah.
art form. And people are like, what? But yeah. So I love that. And I love that your story. I love to hear about your dad. You starting out as a family business. That's just awesome, right? So,
Well, yeah, we raised 80,000 turkeys every year. So, boy, that was a job, and I grew up doing that every morning. That was before school.
right.
We didn't. That was our livelihood. That put bread on the table
Mhm.
and paid the light bill, and it was up to every one of us, the kids and the family, to get busy every morning, 4 a.m.
That's right.
It's your job.
Yep.
So I went to school smelling like sometimes.
But you went, but you went, and the thing is you helped out your family. I mean, this is stuff that's we don't, this generation doesn't even understand. Well, not everyone, but most of this generation, younger generation, doesn't understand because most people didn't grow up like that anymore. But we talked about this before too, and growing up in rural areas and remembering milkmen's coming and delivering, and just a totally different lifestyle at this time. A lot that you and I were like, oh, I could go back to that easily.
Wait, oh my word, I want to so bad. It's just that there's something that's missing, and I think a lot that the community comes together
Mhm.
when things like, when you keep things smaller, and in today's atmosphere, every one of our dollars is like a vote.
Right.
You know, we can take that dollar, and if we spend it in places to promote small businesses, all that's going to do is just build our local communities, to support our neighbors rather than somebody who's overseas or wherever. I mean, it doesn't hurt to help your neighbor in Virginia
Right. Well,
because we're all neighbors.
right. And the thing is even coming through this, it's so much nicer to be able to support somebody locally throughout our nation than having it sent overseas and supporting a foreign nation. I mean, this is one way we
I
thrive here.
Yeah, well, and I found out, especially in the embroidery industry, I found out, a lot of people want to pay less money. And there's a certain degree of you get what you pay for
Yes.
when you go down that road. And I think we talked about it yesterday. I just was approached by a gal that had sent off, and got her husband super fantastic jacket. I'm not sure it's like a shooting competition type jacket, but it came back. All that needed to happen was just years, 2 years, 2022 and 2023. That's all that needed to be put on upon that jacket. But because she was more concerned about saving a dollar, which we all want to save a dollar. Who doesn't want to save a dollar? Everybody does. But you've got to do your homework in today's world. There's so many people out there says I can do it. And then she got the product back and I don't even know what happened there. It's really sad though. And she paid like, and this is the really sad part, is she didn't do her homework. She paid $28 to have 2 years put onto that jacket. It would have cost her $15, and all she would have had to do is come across a couple towns over. Right. And she wouldn't have waited, she would have had it within a matter of a week. I got to get you in the schedule, but a week compared to 6 weeks wait and then to be disappointed once she received it. And you deal with that when you're purchasing overseas, or you are at their mercy. Right. Just because they say they can do it, or they take a picture and put online and it looks real pretty, doesn't mean that, and that's where reviews come in handy. But you really have to do your homework, and you're so much better off to buy from your neighbor. Even if, like, you're in Virginia, if I can talk my kids into doing homeschool, which I've been working on, but they're all, working moms. So, but I trust you, and I'd rather send them to your school because I've done my homework with you and I know you're a good person, than to just whoever might be, just this person down the road or that. It's important to do your homework.
Right. I mean, as I was telling, a young lady was pointing out to me, and I had her on the show, and she's kind of helping me revamp a few things on our website. But she pointed out, she goes, there's a difference between live instruction and online learning. I didn't even think about that. And so she's going to change it, because we're live. We're doing projects together. I never thought about that approach. I was like, it was great to hear that. But she's like, but the parents can watch. They can literally watch everything that's going on. And I hear, we need to put cameras in the classroom. Well, here we are. You come to mine, you see everything live. And we record it. So if you're not there, we're recording and watch what your kids learned. I'll be happy to send it to you.
If COVID taught us anything, it taught us that, a lot of things with technology used in an appropriate manner, a lot of things can be handled from the comfort of your own home. And I believe will bring moms and families back together in the respect that, you can literally stay home, and you can even work a job from home and teach your kids, and everything can be done with this beautiful tool we call technology. As long as you put the good foot forward and you're using it in an appropriate manner, it can be the best tool on the planet. I'm so excited for it. Like, when I heard about your school, I was over the moon. Now I just got to convince my kids.
Well, the thing about shopping local too, and I'm very much about local. It saved my life, as we talked about, Barb. Even eating local. I mean, I was in a wheelchair myself, and I was literally dying with jaundice all over my body, not being able to move. And my husband, thank heavens, is a good nurse, but he's like, because their answer to me was, don't exercise, don't move. Here's like 10 different pills you need to take, and good luck, you're dying. I was like, basically, I mean, that's a rough version. But I mean, all sports where I really felt like these are like my last days. My husband goes, we've got to do something different. And luckily, we were able to move. Thank you, God. Moved me to an area. And I mean, literally, he did, because we made a crazy list, and he just like checked it all off and moved us. And because I have a local meat person and local, greenhouse people that grow, I was able, before, of course, my gardening, I didn't even realize that. But he goes, let's get you on all organic food. Let's get you off these medications and on actual good supplements. 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I was able to start feeling my legs. I was able to start losing the jaundice. And now here you see me up, walking, moving, losing weight, getting healthier. I'm like, imagine that. God's food. Imagine that.
Yeah, but God's food. Right. And not all of us are horticulturalists. I mean, I have a nice little chunk of property to the south side of my house that like I want to like organize a community garden because
Mhm.
one, I don't have all the time that a garden needs for, but the land's there. And
Right.
probably a lot of my neighbors are better at doing that, certain growing things than I am. So I've actually put a bulletin down at the
It's
bulletin board
great.
because, a small town still has bulletin boards.
Well, I've
So now,
got great news for you on that. So number one, if we shop locally, everyone, we help lift our communities up. And we are
yeah,
sustaining our communities so that we don't lose our communities and they don't turn into ghost towns. And we're supporting our neighbors, and this is something we want to do. But let me tell you something that I did before all of this started when I was in my undergrad. On the side, and how Columbia and Harvard even heard about me, is what I started on the side. I started a program working in the community gardens with youth that were in teenagers, high school age, and they wanted to go to college and they felt like there was no possibilities for them. So when you go get grants, it's kind of their way of giving money back to the community, but they want to know what you're doing for the community. So we would go and
right.
we'd wake up, get there by 8 o'clock, and these kids would work these community gardens. They would build toys for the younger ones out of recycled materials, which was awesome, out of tires and bottles like horses they could rock on. 250 hours these kids did in 1 year. And then they had letters of recommendation, they had CVs, they got scholarships. I mean, the two oldest in the program got full rides to the University of Arizona. I was because
Wow.
of the community service that they did. So if you're going to
Yeah.
start that program, I would love to help you with that because this is so important if kids, whatever avenue, I know where they can get scholarships for trade schools too. But again, by having that
Well, we
ability to
actually,
serve the
our,
community,
oh, sorry.
no, it's okay. But by having that volunteerism, it gives them
Yeah.
the ability to get more scholarships. And so I would love to help you
Well,
get that started.
Well, and I've got the elementary school is actually just like literally a stone's throw from the piece of property.
Nice.
So, like,
Nice.
I've
Right
I
there.
I've got some calls. I'm waiting for some return calls from a few of the teachers over to the school because
Mhm.
my mother was the principal. So, I do have some ties over there and know some people. And I thought maybe some of the teachers might want to do that and get their kids involved on that level, because that, like, you'd plant a little plant, bring it home for Mother's Day for your mom
Right.
or whatever. But that's it, it's actually within a real close walking distance. The kids could come right over and have their own little space even for
Mhm.
whatever they want. If they want to grow a Halloween pumpkin or whatever
Okay.
they,
And
anyway, it's a work in progress. Hopefully we can get it done
I
because if we
love
don't
that.
plant like by May 20th, around at least our growing season
Right.
here, if we don't get it in the ground by May 20th, we're not going to have much of a growing season. But
Oh, that's amazing, though. Okay, so viewers, people are watching this. Listen, so we're here to introduce her embroidery company, and she's already thinking
okay,
about what else she can do in the communities, which is something you guys do. And I'm teaching you guys about gardening on Sundays, but you're also being able to teach your little ones how to grow food and eat off the land. I mean, that's so valuable. It is unbelievable. That would be such a benefit
well,
to
and
you.
like you learned, it's so much more healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Saved my
we don't
life.
know when you grow food on a massive level, and I speak from experience here because, like I said, we raised 80,000 turkeys every year, and that was for the Norbest company.
Right.
Well, you have to follow, just like any other thing, you have to follow their standards. And when you're on that massive level, you don't have the free range,
Right.
just eat naturally of what God gave you, you
Right.
know you all of a sudden have all these things coming in, even with the turkeys. And we stayed as organic as allowable. Now that's going to be sound funny to you,
Right.
but as allowable according to the FDA.
Right. Right. Because I was thinking now we're seeing articles about our animals getting shots and vaccines. And, I mean, again, that's under control. By being able to do something locally or for yourself, you're not under that.
Yeah.
You're not under
Well,
that.
and you do notice a difference. Like
Yes.
I notice that mostly I'm a hunter, and each year, we put in for a family deer tag, and we also have private property and so we kind of maintain our deer herd because we grow alfalfa and things of that nature. So we maintain that by just hunting on our own property. We're not looking to get a trophy or anything. We get the meat, we put it in the freezer. But you can notice a difference. When I married my husband, I guess 17 years ago now, he wanted to take me hunting up in the Salt Lake Mountains. And so I went for I've never been hunting in Salt Lake. Like, can you hunt in Salt Lake? Anyway, so I went with him and we went up a place called City Creek Canyon, and it was a nice hike, really great hike, nice, but no deer, none. So we went out to Camas instead, and we did end up getting a deer out there. Had to drag it way too far. About killed me. I thought I was going to die. but the taste in the meat
so different.
was so much different that I mean, you're just looking city deer compared to country deer, because ultimately they're in the wild, they're eating, but our deer also were down in eating our alfalfa that we planted. So, different
Totally
flavor
different.
and it's coming off the land. It's just, it's like eating a grass-fed beef compared to like grown in the big, like industrial buildings, like
right. They're all smashed together and they're all vaccinated, and you really can taste this. I'm to the point now where we went to supposedly a farm to table restaurant just recently, and I ordered a steak, and as soon as I tasted it, I'm like, that's not real meat. That's not organic meat. That's not local. It was the toughest thing I've ever had in my life. And the server comes over, she goes, "What's wrong?" And I go, "Do you really want to know?" She's like, "Yeah." I go, "This is not farm to table meat." Because I eat this every day. So I don't know what company you bought this from, but you're telling people stories here. And she was like, "I'm so sorry." I go, "Again, not your fault. You don't own the restaurant." But I'm telling you, this is not. Yeah. And there's a huge difference.
I found myself several times telling people, "Well, do you want me to tell you the truth or should I tell you a lie?" Okay.
Right. Your service was great.
Yeah,
right. That's what I started with. Your service was great. I know you don't own the restaurant, but yeah, this was horrid.
Love your personality, but food sucks.
Right. So something else, a trade that you could teach, people too, is how to hunt for food. My husband is crazy. We have a huge amount of acreage as well. And he goes back in there and he feeds the deer all the time. And he goes, "I may not hunt right now, but there might be a time that I do, and I want them used to coming onto the property." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this whole in me." I'm like, "That's terrible," but he's smart. If they're used to coming,
very smart.
Then they'll come visit, which now they do. They come and visit, all the time. And I'm like,
and we've had a tough winter this year. The deer around here, we keep talking about the 80s. We flooded here in Utah in the 80s, like something serious, and a town called Thistle over by where Willie Nelson had his ranch just flooded out like entirely, and everything washed away. But we're having the same thing happen like this year. The water's coming in heavy, water levels are up, and over across on our property, there's 20 deer that have just died from the hard winter. But we've been going over all winter long. My husband manages one of the food chains around here, and they have a lot of food that they just throw out. And the sad part about it is a lot of people could literally very much benefit from that food, but we take it over like when they throw out the lettuce ends and stuff like that, we take that all over and give it to the deer because they've had such a tough winter. Just the survival is so sad, but the herd's not hurting. We had a tough winter, but last spring we had more birth than we've had in a lot of years. So, God keeps a really beautiful balance. He's a really amazing God.
Right. I have to agree. I've seen miracles. I mean, absolutely miracles in so many aspects, and it's interesting because what's funny too is we've all kind of done something different. And then he's like, well, I actually want you to do this. And then, hey, you're like, what? I've never done that before. Oh, but you're going to learn.
Yeah.
You're gonna
But that's only if you're listening, Moira.
Well,
You better be listening.
well, there's a huge difference
when
between
he tells
hearing
you
and
to do
listening.
something. When he
Right.
tells you.
That's right. And I'm a person that does listen and follow. I just love it. You guys can see that we've had so multiple conversations before. I mean, both Barb and I have literally found that even though we're on different sides of the nation, we grew up very parallel lives. We grew up in the same kind of time settings, and we have a very similar backstories. And it's like we've been lifelong friends now. It's
You know
just
what?
really
I just was
amazing.
noticing too, Moira. Just looking at me and you together on the computer screen here. Look, our noses are quite the same. We may even be related. Isn't that funny?
Right?
God says we're all related, though. So
Right. Right. But it's so nice to know. First of all, I tell everybody this too. It's just so nice to feel like you're not alone. And they want us to feel like we're isolated, that we're alone. And guess what? We're not. Once we start talking to each other and collaborating together, it is so nice to meet these, wonderful people throughout this nation, and it's amazing to work with Barb.
Too, Moira, is like some of us like get so absorbed with the technology that I think just to like set the phone aside and talk to people, get some of that, interaction with real people, even if it is over a Zoom call, like talk to, get out there, go to your grocery store, visit with people, no, nobody's alone in the world, guaranteed. Right. If you're feeling a certain way, somebody else out there is feeling the same way you are, and all you've got to do is just reach out, and we're all of the same. Oh, what's the word I want to use? We all came from the same place. Let's just put it.
Right. We're the same species. From God. Imagine that.
We
right?
Are. We are, God, and it doesn't
species.
Yep. I mean, I'll never forget when my little Crystal, she's my oldest, and she's spelled with a K-R-I, just so you know. I didn't name her after the rock like everybody else did.
Right.
But no, she is my Crystal. And boy, when she come home, I'll bet you she was only maybe 5th grade. And she came home and told me that I was racist.
Oh.
And she was quite sure. Wow. She was quite sure of it. And I'm wait a minute, Chrissy Bear. Hold on. What are you talking about? Mom's racist, And boy, that was a whole conversation. I felt like I had to start over teaching my child what is racism.
Right. And, so and tell everyone how old your daughter is now, just so we know how many decades back this started.
So she is 32 years old now. Yeah.
Right.
And she's off the old block. She's down in Texas. She actually crosses the border every single day in El Paso. She has a t-shirt shop on the Texas side, but she's living in Mexico because, and this is interesting, but when Trump took office, her husband got deported because his green card had expired. And, he is a Trump 100% supporter. He loves Trump. He was not disappointed. He said, hey, that was my fault. It's my bad. I did it. I knew I needed to, to take care of my business, and I didn't. And, so, and unfortunately they got to stay down because he didn't for so long that now they have to stay down there for quite some time. But, it's kind of neat the way God works in that, she keeps me informed on this end of what's really happening. Because when I'm living in Utah, or I don't really know, I don't see with my own eyes what's going on at the Texas border, and who can I really trust to on the news media to report on it? Nobody.
Well, they say we're fine.
Yeah. The only people you can trust is find citizen journalists somewhere, that like Ben Bergquam, he's down there quite a bit, and so you get to see reports from him, and I can trust he's an everyday guy like me and you who just happened to fall into it because nobody was reporting.
Right.
So,
Right.
I love having her. I'm scared for her, but I know she's tough and she's got everything she needs to protect herself. And she's smart, she walks with her head on a swivel.
Right.
But it's good so that I can communicate now to my small rural town of Utah. Hey, guess what?
This is
Yeah,
happening.
the border is overrun.
Right.
Yeah, there's a
Right.
lot of people coming in that are of fighting age and they're not women and children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But my daughter has video of it. How can you deny that when you see thousands,
Right.
thousands?
Right. Right.
And,
I
and,
mean,
and she's sitting there saying, Mom, you can't believe this. Look. And then she tells me, I don't dare take much more video than that, because
right.
she's afraid. What? What? Who, you mean, is that how we're going to live for the rest of our lives? Is being worried that somebody might see us take video?
Right. Well, I mean, they have fear is the number one thing. If they can keep you in fear and if they can keep you divided, then that's a game that they want to win. And we have to understand that what, we're all doing great things. We're doing great things in our community. There's a lot of people standing up for a lot of different things, everyone. You may not even be political, but you can stand up for something that you see is not happening right in your town, your community, whatever. But you got to be vocal. This is how, and we talked about this. Your daughter's 30 something years old. This is how we kind of got here. We just thought everything was fine and we're just kind of sleeping through it. No offense. And then you're like, COVID, I mean, it called a blessing in disguise in a weird way. Not that we wanted
In a
it, but
weird way.
our eyes got
Yeah.
open. And we're
Yeah.
like, oh, what
Well,
the
and
heck?
I think that's probably the biggest problem with humans in general is we don't like conflict. None of us do. We really like, who wants to argue? It takes a lot of energy. It's
Right.
really, it's way easier to just work things out. But in that same like view of just being easygoing and not wanting to argue and not wanting to fight, we have to stand up for the principles that this nation was built upon. And that
Right.
I think, Maura, it starts in the school of teaching our children what our forefathers did, and how they went each time that they come across a dispute where they weren't making any headway, too much arguing was happening. They took a break, they went away from each other to go home and pray.
Right.
Go home and pray. And that's literally what they did. They went home, they talked to their wives, their family members, significant others, fathers, mothers, brothers. They talked it over with all their people, and then they talked it over with God. And then they came back together and they were able to come and, I mean, right down to wording things exactly right.
Right.
So that, like, when they say the right to bear arms, for instance, they knew that arms or armament or whatever would change with time because everything does. So they called it arms in a broad perspective, so that, listen, whatever you need to defend yourselves with, it might be a hammer,
Right.
but it's your arms. It's what you have to defend yourself with. And
And
really that comes down to.
right. Right. And, when I was telling my high school students, because they're like, oh, I'm not really into this, or I'm not really about, I mean, do you understand how late or how young, not late, but how young the founding fathers were? I mean, my great grandfather,
Right.
he was like 19,
Yeah.
So
And
it
can
is
you
really
remember what
interesting.
you were doing at 19, Moira? I mean, can you imagine having all of that on your shoulders at that age?
Right? I mean, yeah, 19, I was not thinking about a nation. I was thinking about, oh, I'm wild and free. I'm away from my parents, and I'm like
But
living
look how
life.
God guided them. I mean, God guided those young men and women. Like, we have an awesome God. Like, to create this great experiment, which is what it is. We are the last beacon of hope. We are the last bastion of freedom.
Yes, we
because
are.
even though we might think it's free in other countries, you've been to other countries,
Yes,
Moira.
I have.
And it's not. You can't just go to another country and behave like an American.
Right.
You gotta
Oh, yeah.
follow
Try
their
doing that in
laws.
Cuba. Try doing that in Cuba.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so excited. We have somebody in the chat and they're just, I love this, and he's like, is this interactive? Yes. And what are we talking about? So sorry, because I love it when people come into the chat.
Oh
So
yeah,
this,
what's up in the chat
welcome to
room?
the podcast. But I talk about solutions to our communities. And we are kind of going off, on a few things, but Barb here has a embroidery thing, which we will get to, everyone, right? But what she's saying on the side too is she's starting community gardens with, younger people, getting active and learning how to actually produce food or different things like this, which I love. But we're talking about our founding fathers right now too, of what kind of nation they built and at young ages. So that's kind of where we are. And thank you for joining us. What's
Yeah,
the
welcome,
biggest
welcome.
unsolved? So the question was, what is the biggest unsolved problem you have in your community? What would you say, Barb? What's your biggest unsolved problem in your community?
Oh, well, let's just say the closed-mindedness of, dare I say, the Mormon religion.
Oh,
That's a
interesting.
problem. It's a
I
problem
think
because they're not very open to, as much as they preach about being. And don't get me wrong, I was born and raised Mormon, but there's a lot of problem when somebody moves into the community of a different faith. They're
they're not welcome, huh?
ostracized and kind of shunned, and really,
That's
I
too
see
bad.
that as the biggest problem. That and the fact that people won't speak out against something that is clearly wrong. I mean, if it's wrong and it's in your face that it's wrong, you've got to say something. Say something. Don't just sit there and say, "Oh yeah, it's wrong. Okay, bye."
Right. I
No.
think that's a big issue too. And one of my professors was talking to me about 25 years in this kind of world. And she goes, and all these different people come to the table, but nobody listens to each other. You want to
Yeah,
solve
yeah.
a problem, but you won't even listen and discuss it with each other. How are you ever going to solve anything moving forward? And different
Yeah.
opinions are great. Debate
Yeah, that's
is
how
great. Right.
also good.
Communication is great. Would you see
You got to
yourself
hear both.
open-minded? Yes. Yes, I am. I personally say I'm very open-minded. I am a educator. And so my biggest problem, I think, is education. I always go to education because our kids aren't even
Yeah.
learning
Yeah.
foundations. I mean, as a
Nope.
high school teacher, I had students that couldn't even tell me what $10,000 were,
They
right?
can't
And it
even
was
name the three
literally
branches of government.
right, and they weren't even able to read. And we're talking like a kindergarten, first grade level read. And my biggest thing, and I even saw this in Cuba, was there was a huge push to teach everyone how to read. And I don't want to be held accountable to somebody else telling me what's real. I want to be able to read, research, and have a critical mind. That's what I
Hmm.
promote, a critical mind, so
Right,
you
right.
can judge that fact yourself and make that decision for yourself. But being open minded is a great thing because we're a nation of freedom of speech. We're supposed to be,
Yeah.
right? And it
Yes.
doesn't mean that you're going to
100%.
believe what I believe, but it's so
Nope.
important that we even have the ability to do that and
Well,
listen
and
and
it's not a requirement either, Moira, for someone to believe the way
no,
you believe.
no, not at
This
all. And
is
it's so
the
sad to hear
open
your community,
conversation.
right? It's so sad to hear your community shut that down. If you don't belong to the
Well, and
club,
it's interesting you said about the reading thing because what was in my mind is I think of this one individual that moved into town. They were a Catholic family, and it they were literally pushed aside. And as we went through school, now we're talking about a guy that was my age growing up. As we were going through school and everything, I started, like trying to include him because he was just like standing off to the side. And he looked real sad, and that was hard. I'm a peacemaker. I'm somebody that I really want everybody to be involved. And so I went over. Well, come to find out, he was struggling with his reading.
right,
And the teacher
right.
didn't even pick up on it. And Moira, that it was my grandmother that took him in because I told my grandma what was going on. And she was the big Mormon in our family, and I was mad because they weren't they were pushing this family out to a really detrimental degree, and I could see it by the way Cody was behaving in school. And so, yeah, here we got him. My grandma taught him how to read, and it only took a year of work with him before he integrated right in. And yeah, I had him, and I was telling the other boys, hey, Cody's my friend. If you don't like him, that's too bad for you. I
That's
don't
right.
need you either.
Right. Our commenters
And then,
said the same thing, because if you can't add, I'll say it's fake belief. Thank you for joining us. If you can't add or do math, you do what you're told, and that's exactly, step in line,
or
do what you're
read.
told.
I mean, my word, could you imagine not being able to read, Moira?
No way.
That
No way. It would, it literally is so detrimental to so many aspects of your life, because you're always dependent on somebody else, and you'll fall right in line and do exactly what. Reading is absolutely essential.
yeah.
Absolutely essential, because you should never listen to, of course, when you're growing up, you want to listen to your parents and their guidance and stuff like that. But I even challenge my students. I say, prove me wrong. Go prove me wrong. I love it. And sometimes they do. And I'm like, oh, I've learned something new today. But the
Hey, isn't
fact
that great?
right, they're learning how to critically think for themselves. And that's so
And
important.
that's the key. That's the nugget right there, is
Right.
critical thinking. And that's what having differences of opinion really comes down. It's that critical thinking, the breakdown of, well, wait a minute. Let me think of it this way for a second. And
Right.
that's how great things have been created. And I mean, how do you think the internet came to fruition? If it
Right.
hadn't been people batting things back and forth and giving each
Exactly.
other time to have their own thoughts.
And I tell them too, you don't know if you're the next Elon Musk. You have no idea, but it's limitless, and they don't even know that there's a path. So with my school, we do projects that teach our kids how to either create a business plan, or if they want to go to college, the pathway forward for that, or trade school, and how to find scholarships. But you can't even graduate our school without Adulting 101, which teaches you how to have a checking account, a savings account, how to do a budget, how to do plumbing, cooking, sewing, and it's literally broken down. But you want to be prepared to take that next step as an adult. But now we're just
Yeah.
producing these kids, we're giving them passes, and then they go out and they have no idea. And then I had another guest on who talks about, well, no wonder we have so much crime. They have nowhere to go. They're so
Yeah.
confused.
They're
They
bored.
think they're limitless.
Bored.
And right. And how do I live? How do I support myself? And so this is just a never ending cycle of hell. And it needs to
Well,
change.
it's like Grandma Rachel always said, words of wisdom from Grandma Rachel: idle hands are the devil's playground. And it is. You get bored. And so, what do they put into idle hands but a piece of technology that, in some instances, can exacerbate the problem? But if you take it with the mindset of, hey, this is a cool tool, like I can really reach a lot of people with this tool alone. Like, now I mentioned that, I've been able to help the small businesses in my area, be able to afford embroidery. Well, supporting the small businesses in my area does not pay my bills. It does
No.
not. There's not enough of them. They're too few and far between. So I have to use the internet as a reach. And not only that, but I also have to get out there on the foot trail and on the phone trail and get people aware. That's what, like we were talking about with the marketing when we first started. Marketing is a
Oh,
talent that,
so
boy, I
expensive.
wish I knew more about. I mean, I got a little bit in business management when I went to college, but things have changed quite a bit since I went to college in the way of the internet. There's a lot of things I've had to teach myself, and thankfully, there's enough tools available online that you really can dive in if you're dedicated and you willing to give yourself as much time as what you would give an employer. Like
Right.
literally clock into your own clock, and where you spend that dedicated amount of time on making your product, whatever it is, whether it's a service or whatever, work for you,
Right.
and you can get it. And it's not, yes, it takes time. And yeah, you might struggle through, bits and pieces of it. But just like I met Moira, like everybody, as you get moving around in God's circles on earth, you're going to meet the right people at the right time, and you're going to survive. You just got to take the leap.
I agree. So I'm going to answer fake belief here. So with issues in this broadcast here, one thing that I like to do is when I kept hearing the news, they kept saying, do something in your community, stand up and do something in your community. And we all need to do something, whether you have a voice politically or you're building a new business or you're trying to help out with education. And so what I do on Fridays, I bring guests here that have different kind of businesses that are starting different businesses or doing different things in their community to show you exactly what you might be able to do in your own community. Right. I live in Virginia. She lives in Utah. And so every Friday I have a different guest on. And then Sundays, I show you actually different things to do, whether we're gardening or we're cooking or, home remedies for my dog one day. I mean, just different things. But so I'm trying to get people to know that they're not powerless, that there's always something you can do. I've had people come on that talk about doing something even in your local libraries, because libraries are free of charge, and oh, I would love to talk to you about that. I had an idea how to stop poverty. I would love that, because, even my daughter had she had one for the homelessness as well, because in Arizona, where I used to live, there were so many youth. There were over 250 youth that were homeless. And she had a great idea of how to start like different shelters and programs and teaching them how to find scholarships to go to school or starting their own businesses. And so we've also done business plans on here too, where we literally walked you step by step through them so you could start your own. But I love the idea of a library because they're free. And we started a program called Servicio, which taught kids how to read, to pass those levels. And the library not only promoted it for us for free, they also were putting up, these kids, they were highlighting these kids, it was just unbelievable. And it was free. And everything about it was free except our time, and so that's something that somebody could do. If we're really worried about what these kids are reading, start a reading program. If you're really worried about our kids not meeting math or something requirement, maybe you start a tutoring program. But a library is a great aspect to start if you have no money. So I get a lot of different things. She has an embroidery company that works with people, because instead of ordering from China or India or whatever, you actually, by supporting local people, you're building yourself up, especially as a community or a nation, because you're all thriving. And when everybody thrives in the nation, you lift each other up. So
I
but
thought
yeah,
of
I
something.
talk a lot about education because I'm a headmaster of a school. Okay. If your parents read for pleasure, the kids read for pleasure. Yes. That's something else I started too with my own family, is during dinner time, I would read a story that they like, and get them into something that would catch their attention. We'd read it together. And the kids really found that to be awesome. So, but reading is a big thing for me. And it's something that we can do with, like I said, time, but you could start a program for free in your own community, in every community. And that's a great way for people to get active. So I hope that helps. But that's what I'm trying to bring. It's different solutions that people are doing around the nation, because again, I got so tired of different news channels or whatever, or people just screaming, like we all need to just stand up and do something. And you know what? We are, but they don't highlight that. So I'm so happy to bring people here that have a whole bunch of different solutions. And we've kind of got to know each other, and we're rambling a little bit on, about it. But it's so amazing because, COVID affected us a lot, many of us in different ways. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people had to figure out different things for them. And so then what do you do then? And so a lot of people are like, can I even start my own business? And they don't even realize how easy that might be. So, in fact, we're going to be going over the Sunday business plans again. If you want to come on Sunday at noon, is my other show. and we're going over slightly the quick version of it. But I have a full episode on business plans because it's a lot easier than time, but it's a lot easier than we think it is. And they are, exactly. Books are very, very cheap, and I've had amazing authors come on here too that have talked about how you can even write your own book. So I'm really excited about doing this. So I hope that you're enjoying what we're doing. Barb is an amazing person. We met actually we both love, I don't know if you've heard of Catturd, but we both follow Catturd and Jules, and just talking about the same thing, what we can do. So, but it's affecting us. And I started my school because I just couldn't handle what I was seeing in the public school. And I didn't work very long in the public school, but I saw that with my own kids. And then I saw it for, the public school system. And the problem is that we're producing children that are confused. They're depressed. Now suicide is double the rate with our teens. And then we just send them off and expect them to go become great things. And they're not. And I had a guest on that talks about the never ending cycle of crime that they get into because they don't even know that they're possible. So what kind of businesses have been successful for me? Well, I used to be a chef for a long, long time. That's the first thing I did. I never thought I'd be running a school, but I ended up adopting children and going to school myself. I won a few scholarships, and it ended up leading me into education. And then I turned around after teaching in the public school system for 1 year. I go, okay, I need something different because what they were teaching there, I'm not comfortable with. I mean, when you're literally pulling kids out of math class to go and focus on gender. And again, it's not, if you grow up and you want to switch your genders or you want to be whatever, you do you. It's not for me to decide that. But when you are literally taking away from foundational situations to indoctrinate children another way, then you're just getting them to follow in line versus learning how to be successful individuals. And we all need to know our foundations, because how do you run your household if you can't even do a budget? Right? And so that's kind of what I do. It's Berlin. I don't know if you're telling me that or not. But okay. But this is just kind of what I do. And so I started mine a couple of years ago. Barb started hers in 2020 as well. I mean, it kind of was a wake up for all of us to figure out, okay, is this working for me? What choices do I want to make for me? And right. And so has it been successful for you, Barb? I mean, you're saying, not maybe in your own community, but are you getting a nationwide response?
I am. And there's a few podcasters out there that I've reached out to, like you were talking about Jules and Kat. I'm very artistic. I'm not just I'm sure I can do company logos. I do them all day long, but it's not, I'm more artistic. I like to be challenged. So whenever I see a logo that most likely somebody has said, oh, it can't be done, you can't put that on a hat. Well, I will. And I do. And I sent that out to Kat and Jules because I knew that there was, like, their logo is just so stinking cute. It is the most adorable thing. And I decided, I thought, I'll bet there is not another person around that has taken the time, because it's a time thing,
Right.
to actually put that in stitches and have it look really great. They've gone with something simple because it's all about, cost and all this stuff, which I get,
Right.
but I did that just to showcase that, you can do so much. And yeah, I've gotten the support. I go through my tough times. Winter's always hard, no matter what business you're in. Tax time comes, and that's even tougher. But
Right.
I'm still alive. I'm still surviving. And you did mention something that I really wanted to share with the folks out there in the way of hats. And that is that, when I very first started in this industry, we're going back to oh gosh, I'm really going to date myself here. 1990 is when I very first started. And there were around 15 different hat manufacturers here in the US. 15 that you could choose from, made in the USA products. No, not today.
And
And
I'm
in
showing
fact,
you
there's,
your house right now, so you know.
oh
Okay, go
yeah,
ahead.
and see, there's only one manufacturer, and they claim to be made in the USA product. They're actually a branded product, but there are elements and styles that are made here on USA soil, but the majority isn't. It's overseas. And that's what, some of the prior administrations did for us is they just shipped all of our manufacturing away from us, So now if you're a customer who really wants a made in the USA ball cap for your promotional product, or just for yourself to wear to promote your own business, they're hard and few and far to find. But I did notice, and this has just been in the last month, that there is a company that just popped up. So for anybody who's really, got the money to invest in doing something like that, that would be an absolutely phenomenal, and you get business coming at you like crazy if you created a ball cap, an actual ball cap manufacturing company on US soil, because there's only one.
Right.
So you're only in competition with one other person. I've got the property, I have the buildings, I just don't have the money backing to do something like that. But I mean, anything could change at any time, and I'm open to all kind of ideas. And you have to always be ready to change, ready to, you know, you might start out with a really great business idea in your head, and as you go along, all of a sudden somebody like Moira comes along and says, "Hey, guess what? I got an idea that might really, boost your sales," or whatever, and so you got to be willing to take in that information and ready to make any changes that might need to be necessary in order to thrive. So just be flexible, I guess you could say.
Right. My favorite hat, by the way, is "Not Today, Satan." I just do.
Yeah.
I just love that one. I think that is the greatest,
I'll have to send you one of those, Moira.
Well, I really like Jules's hat too, but I just like that one. It says "Not Today, Satan." It just feels like sometimes we're fighting the machine, and
Yeah.
that I really
Yeah, I
love.
wear that one, and then the armor of God I wear
Yes.
quite often too. It's
Right.
interesting when I wear the armor of God. My last interaction that I had on an open air marketplace was really funny. And the times that you really wish somebody would be recording, nobody's recording. But when you don't want them to, but anyways, this guy come up. He was so angry at my hats, and he had a really big opinion, and so he just wanted to flip me off right in my face and tell me how bad of a person I am because of what my hat said. And he just got right in my face, more like just right next to my nose with his finger, just to flipping me off. And I said, "Gee, I'm so sorry about your bad IQ, but I promise I'll pray for you." And
Right.
I had my armor of God shirt
Well,
on.
you're not going to make everybody happy. And we're not supposed to make everybody happy. That's what is so great
No.
about having, a difference of opinions, but to
Yep.
respect that we have difference of opinions and to respect each other's opinions. That's where it really kind of comes down. I'm not here to make everybody
Well,
happy, but
another side to that coin too
try,
is, Moira, those kind of hats sell, right?
Mhm.
Any, like, who's to say? And now this is just being hypothetical, but who's to say that that's my opinion?
Yes,
Who's to
that's right.
say that I didn't make that hat because it sells?
Right. Right. And it locally, so in the chat, yes, locally may be more expensive. You're absolutely right. I feel the same way, but I eat only local foods because it literally saved my life.
Yeah.
And maybe you weren't here before, but I was in a wheelchair with jaundice, and they were telling me I was dying, but all my tests were coming back that I was in perfect health, but yet I was completely wheelchair bound and literally dying. And because I was able to actually eat, and I literally moved, but I have local greenhouses next to me that sell local produce and local beef here. And because I was able to get those, what I'm have a problem with is all those different things, preservatives and stuff that we're putting in the foods. And within a matter of weeks, I was able to feel my legs again. So it really helped me to support local, and that's worth it to me. It
Well, and
really
is
is.
it really more expensive? That's a question I think that everybody should really ponder, because the more power we give away, listen, that's a power. Growing your own food or having a neighbor that grows the food, or really it doesn't matter if it's food or clothing product or what have you. By having the power right next door or within your same town, or on a small level where that individual that you're purchasing from,
Right,
you actually know them, that
right,
even if it's just a local grocer, I would much rather buy from a local grocer than Smith's.
right,
you
right.
know Big conglomerate stuff you've got to be careful with, because that's giving your power away. And then you don't know, you're not right there next door looking at their field that just grew that turnip, or that squash or whatever it is that you might happen to be eating. You don't
Right.
get to see the process that it goes through, how
Exactly.
much pesticides got sprayed upon it, how much, when you're talking fruits and vegetables, those pesticides get sprayed, it goes into the ground, and the groundwater goes into the plant. And so then guess what? You got pesticides. And that's what I think you dealt with a lot, Moira, in your health issue, is that you were, all those pesticides and all that junk, all that gunk
We're killing
is
me.
coming in through the food that you were eating.
Right, right. So sometimes I think, and it doesn't matter what side. I mean, I could wear a certain hat. He had a question here. I could wear a certain hat, and the person could wear a totally opposite hat. And I think sometimes people just take offense because we're supporting that. I don't know if we're, trying to offend the other person, but sometimes we want to wear a shirt or a hat in support of who we love. The same way we would wear a shirt from a rock concert, you know, um, and somebody might not agree with that. And that's their right to do so,
Well,
but
it's
I
like
don't
this
think that
hat.
we're intentionally trying to make them mad. I just think
No.
that it sometimes people get that way because they might feel we're trying to make them mad, but we're trying to support who we want to support. But that's part of being a free nation is, hey, as long as you're
Free
not
speech.
threatening somebody's life or being absolutely criminal about things, we should live in a country where we're able to share our opinion and our voice, right?
Well,
And
it's just
so
as simple as like posting a post on the like Facebook or something, Moira. Like, why would somebody come in and attack you over or a picture that you shared or whatever, just because you happen to like the picture, you shared it. Let's say it was a purple butterfly,
right,
you shared the purple butterfly post on your post, but somebody that over, wherever, didn't like purple butterflies. And so then they come at you with will you and your purple butterfly. Who cares?
right,
Nobody cares. Like,
right,
that's just conflict, that you're like, that's just somebody looking for attention, looking for a fight. Who
right,
cares about that? I mean, we really have to get back to the free speech and what it is, what it means.
right.
Like, she could have easily passed on by
Walk
that
away.
purple butterfly.
Right.
Go
Walk
ahead and
away.
scroll on past it. It don't got to bother you that much.
Right.
If it bothers you that much, then you got to ask yourself, why does it bother you?
Right. And then if it's political, hey,
Yeah,
vote for your guy. We're that's our right here to be able to do that. And you should,
yeah,
instead of
100%.
getting offended, just be like, that's not for me. And I'm not here to say whatever can I, but I think that's probably the most heated situation
Yeah.
when we see stuff that's political. But sometimes
Yeah,
you
oh, of
just have to
course,
be a
yeah.
bigger person and say, I'm walking away from this. It's not my deal. It's not this,
But
that's not
how does God get political? That's what I always wonder is,
I don't
like
know.
when I go out and I've got my armor of God shirt on, or my not today Satan, you know, wow. I
Right,
I
right,
just say, "Hey, I love you. I'll pray for you." Really, because nobody
right.
needs to get that heated over
Right.
anything.
And
It
and I
doesn't
don't
matter
think
what
yeah,
it
I don't think either side should be screaming at each
No,
other. I mean, you're
no.
free here to at least
That's
hold
the problem.
protests or to hold rallies or things like that, and, you're free to walk away from that, but when people are violent in each other's face, doesn't matter what side you are, that is not called for.
That's
When there's a
wrong.
level of criminality, you got issues. but you should be
That's
able
when
to
you're
have
crossing the line.
discussion. Right. You
Yeah.
should be able to discuss things because you never know where you're going to find something in the middle. And
Right.
isn't
Well,
that
and you
how you
don't
move
know,
forward as
like
a
I said, I
person?
might have that hat on my stand, but I might have another one on the other side of the stand that is exactly what you
Right.
wanted.
Right.
When you're in business to sell products. That
Right.
doesn't, just because you're selling a certain product that says a certain thing, that doesn't always have to be that's your opinion. you know I mean, I could come up with a lot of different things to say and say, oh, but that's not necessarily my opinion. But because it sells and is somebody else's opinion and they want to buy it, that's what I'm in business to do, is
Right.
sell that product.
Right.
And that's the way people need to get their mindset back in to line of, hey, people sell products. Businesses sell products. That doesn't necessarily, I mean, even if it is my opinion, it doesn't mean it is. Do you see what I
Right.
mean?
Right. And I love
Mean,
that
there's
as
really
a
fine
business
line.
owner, Barb, that you're willing to just eat whatever you guys want. I'm sure there's certain vulgar
Yeah,
things that you probably would never do, or threatening criminal things you would never do. But the fact that
yeah.
anybody can bring this idea to you because it's their business and go, hey, I want to
Oh, yeah.
support this. Can you make this? And that's what
Yeah,
it's
I'm
what
custom. I do custom work. Like if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, I really seen this hat and I really want it. It's got a bird finger
Yes.
flipper." That's not a hat that I would necessarily wear myself, but of course, you bet. Take
Right.
me about a half hour. I'll make that for you.
That's right.
Yeah, of course
That's
I
right.
will.
And
You know,
again, I love differences of opinion. I love to be able to get around a round table and find common ground that we can move forward united together, because you can't be stuck in old school ways and you can't be at extremes the other way. You have to be able to have a critical mind, hear each other, not even hear, let me rephrase it, listen to each other and find solutions that benefit everybody as a whole.
Yep.
But without that ability, then we have major problems. And that seems to
Yeah,
be,
we can't be just shutting people down and well, I'm done.
yes,
No, we have to, the communication has to continue. United we stand.
right,
That
right,
that's where that's the most important thing is
right,
us, we the
right,
people. And that means
right.
all of us.
I agree.
And that's not hating on you because you posted a purple butterfly, you know.
Right, right. So,
That's putting your arm around you and saying, let me introduce you to my green butterfly. I got a green one too.
right. And I don't know. We really need to be able to debate, and again, not necessarily force people to join our our opinion. There are
No.
certain things that I will say, and we're going to kind of get into this. So if you think that we might be pushing a certain kind of propaganda, just to my viewers here, it might get a little bit more of that for you, because I am going to later on show a few things that I personally am against. And that's when it comes to our children. Because instead of learning foundations, we're pushing all kinds of crazy narratives on them when they can't even have a critical mind to think for themselves, and then try to tell these kids that they can make these decisions at 3 years old or 4 years old or 5 years old. When you look through actual biology, their frontal cortex doesn't even fully develop until you're about 20-25. So again, whatever you want to do with your life, if you want to change who you are, go do it. If you want to be straight or gay or whatever you want, go do it. But to sit there and say that a 3-year-old can make that decision and then give them drugs or hormones or things to do with that, that's where I say no. This is
Yeah.
something, let our kids grow up. Let our kids be able to do that. Let them have the ability to have safe spaces to feel certain ways. But as I raise kids too, they change 100 times who they want to be. But as a parent, to go and do that for them and make those decisions for them, are we giving them the true choice to be free either? And no, I don't believe that we are. So I kind of get a
I
little
wore
bit
a tutu
excited on
for a
that
month and
because
I'm a ballerina.
right. It really, really bothers me when it comes to our children. I mean, and
Yeah.
no wonder they're so confused, scared, and killing themselves, because instead of teaching them the pathways forward, we're literally confusing their minds, where they're so depressed and feel unloved. And what my students would say to me too is that nobody ever told them that I would say, I believe in you. And they're like, they never heard that before. These are seniors. And they never heard, I'm sitting in a school of 75 other teachers, and they've never heard anybody say, I believe in you. And let me show you how you can do that, or you can become that. I was like, wow. And that's where we have injustices.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. And they just leave so crazy that they don't know where to turn. And, you know, it's a problem I keep seeing in our schools. And so I really talk about our schools. You've never heard that.
Well, I think it's
wow. See, that's a crime. And I'm sorry to our things, but I am so sorry, because our teachers should absolutely be going, I believe in you. And here's an example for you. I had 3 different students in different classes, and one was a fashion designer, one was a logo designer, and the other one was starting an apparel company online. They didn't really know each other, so I called them separately into school after school, and I said, they thought they were in trouble, and I didn't, tell them otherwise. It's just like, come on, I need to speak to you. It's mandatory you be there. And they come like, Miss H, what do we do? And I was like, nothing. I figured you guys should meet each other, because you guys could collaborate and start a business. You're already doing the designing. He's got the company and you're doing logos. And I'm like, I believe in you. You guys could start this right now. And they had never been told that. And what are we telling our youth? We're telling them you're not good enough from the word go. I mean, if they're 5 years old and they're getting these books that say, hey, you can change your sex. Again, when you're an adult, you go do you. But you're telling that child at 5, you're not good enough as you are. Wow. And then they never hear it in school ever. Like, oh my gosh, you want to be a doctor? Yeah, absolutely. Let's show you the pathway. You want to be you want to start an embroidery company? Let me show you the pathway, because I believe in you. You can do and become anything you want to in this life. And they had never heard that. And nobody ever showed them. And that's what makes me different, is because you don't go to my school without me showing you the pathway together. I mean, I'll show you how to do it. Then we'll work on it together. And then, and my economics teacher last year, she taught them how to start food truck businesses, from the business plan all the way to pitching it at Shark Week. And I was like, wow. And so, like, you may want to do this, you may want to start a different business, but this is how you do it. And I believe in you. I'm like, it's just crazy. It's in that our youth are not hearing that. And he's saying that, I don't know if you're a he or she, I'm sorry, but the fact that you're around our ages and you never heard that just breaks my heart.
Right? Moira, I even thought about, just from my experience in the embroidery industry, and having worked for corporate America in the industry as well, not just on my own, but for corporate America, like I've really thought it might be a good idea for me to actually open up and teach, because I did that for a company up there where people would come and buy the embroidery machine, and I would teach them how to set up and how to do pricing and how it all kind of works through the industry. But what I started finding out is the actual, and it's a 2-year learning curve, no matter which way you look at it. And that's a lot of things that the machine salespeople won't tell you. The machine salespeople say, oh yeah, anybody can do it, but they work on commission. So of course they're going to say that. They, yeah, you can do it tomorrow. You bet, because that's what we got told. But we found out right away that there's a lot more to it, So I thought, even, that's why I say be flexible, because I'm only 2 years in and I'm still paying my bills, but I could change at any given moment to say, all right, well, maybe there's a bigger need for the kids in my area to actually learn a trade where when they do get out of school, they can actually find a job that will pay them a decent wage to survive in today's world, because there's just not, like I say, I went to Texas, I went to California, and then finally New York to finally get the training. But I had to pay a great deal of money to go out there. And it was only 10 days. That's all I got. The rest of it was all just practical experience, all just putting the knowledge to use, trial and error. And 30 years later, they call me an expert.
Right. I love that idea of you teaching, because I mean, and you might have to do some guest appearances at HLA to teach our youth about a different pathway too. But I love that empowering and self-awareness rather than putting people down. And I agree. I mean, I love it when my students fail. And when I mean that, it's not like fail the course per se, but I had one
No.
student struggling with a science experiment. She tried to make that volcano, I don't know, 3 times. And she'd fail, and I get so excited. And she's like, "Why are you so happy?" I go, "Because you get to learn how to make it right." And sometimes by failing, we learn, well, that didn't work. So we got to try a different way. But that also goes to show you in your life, okay, just because you failed the first time doesn't mean you're going to fail the second time. You just learn, oh, I made these
No,
mistakes.
that just gives us the opportunity. And I've always said that if
Right,
I'm not learning something new every day, then I failed.
right,
Because there's so much to learn in the world. Like, never, ever, ever walk around. If you're walking around thinking you know it all, then I got a thing or two to teach you, because nobody ever knows it all. And there's so much to learn, so much we can learn from each other, just by being by getting involved, by speaking up and saying, "Hey, let me help you," or "I got an idea," and then having that open dialogue to be able to express those ideas and build on them. And before you know it, boy, you've exploded into a whole new stratosphere.
Right. And exactly. I mean, our best inventors, I love Invention Month, I call it, because we've learned how many times they fail at that business or fail at that experiment or whatever before they come out with a really great one. Then we all have electricity. That's a good kind of little example. Right. But,
How many times do you think Elon Musk failed before he finally figured it out?
His rocket just exploded. And he was like, how much we
Exactly.
learned from this? Right?
Yeah.
And instead of saying I failed, he goes, "Well, we learned a whole bunch of information today, didn't we?" I'm like, "What a great attitude."
That's the
What a
trial and
great
error, just like
attitude.
with me. You just, if you get an idea in your head, the only way is to test. That's the scientific, your
Right.
hypothesis, and then go try it. If it
That's right.
works, great. If it doesn't, then you can learn of what you need to do to change it
Yes.
up so that it will work.
Right. And I especially love it having it in the school environment because it feels a little bit safer to them than the being out in the real world already. So if they learn the idea of failure and success and okay, and how are we going to fix this problem? Or okay, this one didn't work. I want to try an alternate item, or maybe out of the 10 that failed, like you said, that one succeeds. But if they can learn that with real supportive instruction, and this is why we do projects in my school. We don't do testing like everyone else does, where you sit in front of a computer and you just test. We are literally building projects with our hands. We're art integrated at my school. So it's not just painting, but we'll do sculpture. You heard economics is doing food truck businesses, all different kinds of things. So that you can kind of develop those with the safety net that you're not really an adult yet and get your feet wet so that you know that, okay, wait, I failed and I'm still okay. Yeah. And we write down what all went wrong. And like I said, I get all excited and they think I'm crazy, but I'm like, you've learned so much by failing. And now how are we going to fix it? How are we going to rise above that? And it's so empowering to watch these youth find faith in themselves. It is just blows my mind because they don't even have that. Don't even have.
And you know what's sad too is kids are so much more prone to faith. That's what that really just breaks my heart about this COVID and how it really affected our kids is, boy, just took the wind out of their sails in certain cities and stuff, and you just want to put your arms around them and tell them everything's going to be okay. We'll get through this, because we will. We will. There's enough good people in the world. And I'm not just talking about in the United States, because it's all over the world. And good people will prevail. They really will.
That's right. And it's like I said, and I'm going to bring some new stories, which we could do together later if you want to stick around with me, if you want to. And we've kind of digressed and we've been talking a lot, and I love this. I feel like we're not promoting your company enough because you are my guest on this show. So, everybody, if you want something really beautifully made, that's custom embroidered, I mean, you've really got to check out Kind Embroidery. and it's just kind-embroidery.com. Every link that or every guest and every link that I have and I bring to you, I put in the below my Rumble show. So you can always go find me on Rumble under Headmaster's Homeroom, and you will see that those links are there and where to find our guests and so forth. But I've seen some most beautiful work, and it's really not, like you said, like even our guests are saying, that it's worth that couple extra dollars for even the food, to get the organic, he said, I think organic bananas. I mean, just to get that real product versus something that's just kind of slapped together or may fall apart if a few days later or a few weeks later. And then again, you're supporting somebody that is well, in this case, local to our nation. They're from London, by the way, our guests, our little
hi London.
So, and I don't know, we're so many places right now. There, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook right now, we're on D Live, we're from Odyssey. We're all over the place. So it's exciting that we have guests, or people coming in chatting with us. But even if you start something in your own, even if you start something in your own community together with other people, it's just so amazing that you're not only finding great friendships, which you may or may not agree with, but you're building relationships, you're starting programs together, you're starting businesses together, you're supporting each other, you're helping your own communities. And I really am all about that. Oh, he's waving back. Thank you so much. So it's awesome. But I just loved it, and finding each other in different, in a chat group. And it's the funny thing about the cat turd is that I was introduced to him by my high school students. I didn't have a clue who Cat and Jules were at all. And they're like, have you watched? Because we had a journalism class. And I was like, okay, in journalism, I wanted them to bring me news from all different aspects. And we would sit there and talk about it, critically think about it, and find, so usually in the middle, somewhere in the middle, they're all saying something accurate. But they had their different spins on things. And I kept having these couple of kids that were brother and sister that keep bringing me information also from Cat, Turd, and Jules. I'm like, who the heck is this? I was like, what? And so they're this age, you gotta watch his show. I was like, what? And so it's really awesome to see another point.
Cat just got such a great, funny, and Jules, I mean, my word, I could listen to that woman's voice all day long.
Voice. Yeah, she's got a great voice.
Oh man, yeah.
Right. So, and it's finding like-minded people that, in a world where you feel kind of alone, maybe, it's nice to just be able to reach out and talk to people that maybe somewhat agree with you. Again, maybe not on everything, but you're finding some common ground. And it's like, oh, wow. And then you're finding out what each other are doing in their communities. And it was so uplifting that I really enjoyed it. And I've been now, I think, listening for about a year when I can. Sometimes I don't get lunch, always at the same time. Yeah. And I'm not there every day, I'm like probably a lot, but it's nice. It's nice to have that. Yeah. So, right.
Well, right. Even if I miss live, I catch it later. Sometimes I don't always either, but yeah, I mean, just look at this here. So many good things can come from just jumping in a chat room and just put yourself out there, just really go ahead. It's okay. Not, right. I think right now in our community or our world, or I don't even know if it's the mainstream media or what it is, but I think people go out of their houses kind of expecting to like have a confrontation or something, and it's like, nah, we can't, we got to live our lives. We got to be happy. We don't have to be, but it's generally a better thing to be happy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I encourage that. Yeah. Right. I encourage traveling too, because this is a global issue. And, one thing I have learned from going and traveling around the world is, how much we're alike. Yeah. I mean, we all get up, we go to school or work. We love our families. Yeah. We come home, we eat, we, do the same things. What's different is maybe our traditions or what we celebrate. Yeah. Our food might be different, or our culture is somewhat different, but let's celebrate that. But we're all so much the same, and they don't want to, don't want us to know that. But we're human. We belong to the same race. So we're gonna have the same.
All human. I mean, that's what I've never been able to get past that. Like, excuse me, we're all humans. Thank
Right.
you. See
Right.
you
Exactly.
later.
Exactly.
And every time
So,
somebody tries to bring up anything else, that's where my mind goes. It's like,
right.
excuse me, human
Right.
here.
So, here in the US, we got some issues that are going on, especially with our children. And, that's my personal mountain to climb. I think a lot of us kind of have that thing, those issues, but we call it indoctrination here. And, there's different forms, I guess, of indoctrination, because teaching kids how to read and write, it's a certain form, it's a repetitive. You got to teach them math drills, it's repetitive. But this kind of indoctrination is where we literally tell these kids, you were not perfect from the word go. You want to change your body right now. You want to have a whole bunch of drugs put in your system. Let's just cut off your parts because you're absolutely not good at who you are, instead of lifting them up and helping them try to figure out, is that exactly who you want to be? And
Yeah.
well, no matter what you want to be, you still need these foundations so that you can be a successful adult in life, because that's thrown out the window. And it's a real big problem here, a real big problem. And I just really, that's my hill I'm going to die on, everyone. And
Yeah,
I
I think that's a hill for all of us to die on, because if we can't save our kids from the dumb, well, I
call
but
it, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
the
Thumper, got to
guys,
take
right,
Thumper's stand on the matter, but we really need to keep our kids' minds healthy, and yeah, we
right.
teach them
Call,
productive things.
call it selfish. I don't want to be 80 years old with a whole bunch of people who are depressed or suicidal. They don't know where they're coming or
Yeah,
going. They don't know how to run a business. They don't know how to even manage in life, and call me selfish. But I want to be able to make sure that I'm going to be in a country that's run by people that actually have an intelligence to them. You know,
yes, I agree, 100%.
I agree. I agree. Kids don't even care about that. It's like racism. He says that kids don't care about gender when they're 6 or 7. You're absolutely
They
right.
don't,
It's like
yeah,
racist. I hear that this a lot of times. Well, even kids are racist at like 3 and 4 years old. I'm like, have you ever seen kids at preschool? They eat each other's snot. I
yeah,
mean,
right.
they
Pick
don't
each
care
other's
about
nose.
or whatever. That is not something they know. That's something that's
No,
taught by society or parents or so forth, right? But they
it's a
do. They
learned behavior.
don't care. They just want to run and be free and dream that one day I'm going to be I'm a princess today. Tomorrow I might be a firefighter today. And, I mean, getting them to even learn ABCs and reading sometimes is even a challenge, because they're in this dream world where they're just like,
Well, I
oh,
think
yeah,
that's why I was so involved in all those 4-H programs, Moira, is I was trying to find exactly what it is. Do I really like? I like
sure.
to do a lot of things. Am I a baker? So I did cake decorating. Am I an oil painter? So I did oil painting. Am I an embroiderer? Wow, I ended up being an embroiderer. That was something that I did in 4-H as a child. But everybody searches for
Exactly.
themselves what they really like to do. And they should be free to do so, not just have something crammed down their throat, or heaven forbid that they be told that they're not good enough, because God made everybody and God don't make any junk. Period.
Right.
And
Right.
even with people that I struggle with, I have to tell myself that, listen, God doesn't make junk. So, whatever it is I personally am struggling with another individual, that's my own struggle, that I need to figure out why I am struggling with their opinion. It's not my opinion, it's theirs. Why am
Right.
I struggling with it? And that's, we really have to get back to that, and realize that it's all propagated, I think, by the mainstream media and the public
Right.
school system.
Right.
That's why
And
I'm so excited
it
about
is.
your school.
Well, a lot of people, here, our school programs are ran by title programs, and people don't even
Mhm.
understand. Because I was talking to somebody early this morning that just assumes that, oh, it's just a couple of books, and it's only in the high school. When one of the biggest books that is a huge problem is called Gender Queer. And
Oh,
I'm
wow.
not saying to ban a book. You go write your book. But this was
Yeah.
given to my neighbor's kindergarten. That's a 5-year-old baby. Okay. A 5-year-old little girl. She was given this book that teaches, step by step how two men have oral sex, and given it as a homework assignment on top of it.
Oh
What
my
in
word. I
the
would
world? Right. What in
and
the world?
they say we're
ABC.
banning. Yeah, we don't ban books. We ban content that's inappropriate for age groups.
Right. And that's when we are starting to have issues. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not into curb telling your free speech, but I am
Yeah,
saying that our children should not be reading pornography at 5.
no.
Especially when you're
Reading,
talking
writing,
about
and arithmetic.
foundational steps. And there's a new thing going on in our schools. Maybe it's not so new. It's new to our awareness, where now if you say I'm depressed or I'm suicidal or I don't feel happy today or whatever, now the counselors, those are code words. And I have an article I can share in a minute, but it's code words for our school counselors to sit there and not tell the parents about this, first of all. Pull the kids aside and start going into this trans programming. Well, maybe you want to change your body. Maybe you're not comfortable in this. But what alarmed me, and I talked about this last week, is like, I have children, and you're not going to tell me my kids are suicidal? Are you kidding me with this? So, I mean,
when we were growing up, that would have been the first phone call.
right.
Like if I would have said something like that to my school principal or my guidance counselor or somebody like that,
Right.
very first thing would have happened and my mother would have been called and said, "Are you aware?" And
Right.
why would you not want the parents involved?
Right. I would want to save my child's life. Absolutely. Get them counseling, be involved in that, support them, finding ways to get them out of this depression. But I don't want, and awesome that they feel safe to talk to you in school.
Yeah.
But you're not even going to tell me. So then where's the parental support? Because you should be receiving that support at home too, so that child gets the help they need to succeed. And I just was like floored. So this is a huge, huge movement that's going here in the United States, where schools are finding ways to not talk to parents and we're fighting for parental rights here right now. I never
Which is
thought
so
I would ever see the day that we are fighting for parental rights, just to know that our kids feel depressed or our kids, are going through something. I was like, wow, but instead of reaching out to the family and promoting the whole, like, it takes a village. You've ever heard it takes a village? Instead of giving them that atmosphere to succeed, we're going to hide this from your parents. We're not going to talk to them. And we're going to continue to promote your depression to the point where you think you need pills and you need to cut your parts off, or you need to just be so depressed and you're spinning yourself around into utter depression. And then we're just going to let you go at 18 and say, here you go. Right.
yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah, good luck.
what are we producing? And so these
The
are the hills
RX
I
generation.
right. And this is what I have a problem with. Again, I'm not saying when you're an adult, you have absolutely every right to go do you, as long as, of course, you're not violent or you're not doing anything criminally. But I almost think this is absolutely a crime that we're going to do this to our young ones when they should be absolutely dreaming about all the things they could be or could not be, exploring those different ideas, those different options, and with us showing them, okay, here's what you're going to need, but definitely not in those ages. It should all be learning to read, write, learning how to count, learning how to, maybe even throw a second language in there, that would be awesome. But
right.
I mean, I'm seeing this all over. And then I have a neighbor. So the same neighbor, this poor little girl, she'll be in my school next year, by the way. But
Thank
she's in
heaven.
first grade, right? She's on a computer all the time. And this is the one that got the homework for the queer, gender queer. Then they told her that her daughter is too active after they put all these kids on the computer. Her daughter's too hyper, and that she was not allowed to bring her daughter back to school without her being on medication. When did the teachers become doctors? Forbid it. The school superintendent forbids this child to come back to school without being on some kind of ADHD medication. And the girl is like a zombie now. I'm like, unbelievable.
Well, we made a law here in Utah, and this has been back in the 90s, that teachers were not allowed to diagnose, because that was a literal diagnostic. So like I would challenge anybody in your school district, and I know getting to a school board meeting ain't anything easy anymore, but boy, I'd address that, because the principals are not doctors.
Right. Right.
You know,
And
there's
you're
how can
absolutely
that
right.
principal say, "Oh, you can't do that"?
One of the reasons I went online, like we discussed before, because I said, I am no doctor or health professional. So who am I
Yeah,
to tell you what to put in your body? That's between you and the doctor. I don't, you go do you, right?
yeah,
But you're gonna
yeah,
gonna put
yeah.
it to the point where the business owners, at least here in the States, the business owners had to mandate a vaccine or not, depending on the position. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't want you to sue me because you may or may not get injured. And then, right, I'm not your doctor, so who am I to tell you? I have no degrees in health at all. That's why I have a nurse that works for us, you know. And he still doesn't want to tell you because he's not your health professional. But that should have been
Yeah.
something. Your medical treatment belongs to you and your physician, not the school. And that was a huge issue for me. And then again, too, I mean, with what's going on here in the States too is what we consider it. So it's not a fight against transgender per se or drag queens. I've personally been. I have gay friends. When I went to school in New York City, they brought me out to the. We went out for the night. We ended up in a bar that was for gay people, and they had a drag show going on. And this was a bar, 21 years and older, and I didn't see any nudity. It was more of like impersonations, per se, but there was no nudity, there was no sex toys, there were no nothing. And this isn't a bar. But what's happening in our
Yeah.
school is they're having these people come in, they're bringing sex toys with them, they are teaching, the kids to give them money and tipping them, and these are in our schools. This is a problem. And I made a mention
Mm,
about what's the difference between bringing a female stripper or a transgender, and they're both just stripping. Either way, it's still pornography. Either way,
yeah.
it's still nudity. And this is not shouldn't even be in schools at all.
No,
Why are we
no.
promoting nudity? Right. And so
Honestly.
it is absolutely programming. And
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
absolutely shocking to us. And then now we're coming to the point where I'm even hearing too, where if you give somebody a mispronoun, they're trying to make it against the law where you could actually get arrested for mislabeling somebody. And I thought this is a joke until my
For
husband who works
calling
in
a spade a
hospitals,
spade,
right. My
honestly.
husband who works in the hospital says this is no joke. If you mislabel somebody, it could absolutely cost you your job. I was like,
You know
wow.
what bugs me, Moira? Like I mentioned earlier, I do tie-dye as an art form, and I have been called a hippie. Why do we feel it necessary to label
Anybody.
people as anything? Anything.
Right.
Because like I said,
Right.
I'm too young to be a hippie. But yet, because I do a tie-dye, and then they go ahead and label. Why do we need these labels? It's programming, it's indoctrination, it's bull crap.
Right. Right. Exactly. And they continue to do this and continue to do this to continue a programming of our children. And it's just alarming. And they think that we're full on attacking. And we're not saying that you can't go and do you. As an adult, you just, like I said, I love that saying that, you go do whatever you want to. That's fine. As long as it's not criminally or not hurting people, things like that. But a child is something totally different, and there's no way that a child, and they're starting even at preschools, there's no way a child at 3 years old can tell you that they're even anything besides maybe a fairy princess that day, you know or whatever they're dreaming of being that day. But to sit there
I just
and
think I think they're trying to convince us that Satan is not real, that Satan does not exist, and therefore it's okay to do all of this nonsense. You
right,
won't suffer any repercussions from anybody, because if Satan doesn't exist, then therefore neither does God,
right,
right? So
right,
why would you suffer any, consequences for being listen, I really don't think Jesus is very happy about what they're trying to program our children with, because that's
right,
really what they're doing. They're not teaching them life skills. That's not a life skill. How did
Right.
I mean,
Right.
for real? Just, I mean, I can dress up like a boy.
So this is
all
one
I
of them.
want. In fact, go ahead. Sorry.
Right. No, I was just showing as you're talking. This is one of the things out of California where a school required the teachers required us to lie to parents about their kids' identity. California teachers claiming a lawsuit. They filed a lawsuit because the district administrators and the California State Board of Education over policies that alleged and required them to deceive parents about their children's gender identity. Like I said, there's these trigger words, right? And I have another article to show you that's talking about school counselors and these trigger words. But this is just going the point where parents have to sue them now, or even teachers have to sue, because look, they said they were instructed students' preferred names and pronouns in school, but to revert their biological pronouns and given names when speaking with their parents. Countering a suspicious instructed to reply that they were only allowed to discuss information regarding the student's behavior as it relates to school, classroom's assignment, or according to that suit, instead of talking to him about, I mean, even if your kid does say that, says, hey, I am thinking about, maybe I'm in the wrong body. Wouldn't you want to have your parents be informed in that discussion? But they're literally hiding. And so, hey, go ahead and lie to your parents. We're not going to tell them. And I'm seeing more and more and more of this. And it's just alarming. And then we have to fight that back. When did the parents lose their rights to their own children?
Yeah, look what you just said there, Moira. They're actually teaching our children to lie to us.
Right. Right.
Like
and
the public school system is teaching the kids to lie.
Right.
Oh, that's all right. You just lie to your parents. It's all good. Don't worry about it. We got you.
Right.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
Boy,
There's another one here I'm going to share with you too that goes right here. Let me get on to and read what this one says. A rural Texas school district promotes chat rooms for kids to talk to strangers about their gender behind their parents' backs, and provide resources which tell kids that there are more than two genders and that they can be trans. When you go into this article, it talks about how this chat group start at from the word go, starting in first grade. Again, why are these kids being taught to even talk in a chat group with strangers about something that they can't even understand? I mean, they don't even get taught biology until high school. So these kids don't understand what you're talking about.
No.
Right?
I mean, I remember when MySpace just came on to the internet thing when my kids were young, and I had an old Dell computer, old laptop, and they literally, my computer smoked it, like because against because I told them they weren't allowed to have a MySpace page. They were too young. But kids you tell them not to do something, they're going to go do something. So they went and did that something, and unbeknownst to me, and I didn't, I wasn't second guessing my kids. It's not like I went and looked on my computer to see if they made a MySpace. I just trusted that they heard and listened to me, and we had carried on. And 2-3 weeks later, my computer literally smoked because of all the viruses that it had picked up from being on the MySpace. But I mean, even back then, they were trying to tell my kid, oh yeah, Crystal comes running, mom, I have 300 friends. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You have 300 acquaintances, people who said, hey, let me be your friend. But you don't know them. They could be predator. They could be all kind. You don't even know. You don't even know. And that is the worst thing. I mean, to sit and promote. Oh, man. You can tell I get pretty passionate about the kids. I do too. I don't.
I mean,
yeah, I don't.
Here's
agree.
Another one too, and it says a teacher was caught on a hot mic, and I listened to this too, threatening students if they rejected these teachings. And this was done in, I believe it was a 5th grade class. So you're talking 9 and 10-year-olds. The teacher was threatening the students if they even rejected this. I was like, wow. And again, I did listen to it, and it's like we're not going to tell your parents, and you absolutely, it's mandatory, and that you have to do this, and I mean, I'm going to threaten you with whether it was I think it was suspension. Right? I was like, "Oh my gosh." And the funny thing about schools too is you were saying this in the chat. They were saying this in the chat. When you're a teacher, do you think I walk around going, "Hey, they, them"? No, I mean, if his boy's name is Johnny or whatever they want to be called, we always ask, "Is there a certain name you want to be called?" And you say, "Hey, do this," or "Hey, Susie, can you go help Johnny with that?" I mean, we don't call you that. I mean, to have even the pronouns is ridiculous because we don't go walking around going, "Hey, him, her," or whatever. He, him. Can you go do this? I mean, we don't even refer to you as that. We refer to you by your first name. So I'm like,
we
this
had
is just
nicknames growing up that weren't even used in school. Like all of us kids called each other. Like I was Bubbles, and all of my friends called me Bubbles, but they didn't call me Bubbles in school. And none of my teachers called me Bubbles, and I don't even know where Bubbles came from. It just came.
Right. So
but that
it's true. And so it faithfully says this is a teacher training issue. So here, and I can tell you for first thing, and I'm going to have somebody else that was a teacher for 15 years and Texas coming on in a few weeks. But I had to go through teacher training to do this. They mandated that I sit through training for a year to make sure I followed this protocol. And I basically told them, I'm under contract. You can either fire me and pay me in full, or I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And they let me do what I was going to do because I didn't really insult anybody. I always provided a safe space. I let them be and feel whatever they want to. I'm talking high school students, so too, but I literally had to sit through a training for almost a year of this. It was like every Friday, making sure, and they are, it's if the teachers are being trained to do this, and you're right, it's a training issue, but when you're promoting that kind of training, it's making it even worse. And then what do the teachers do when they feel uncomfortable about this as well? Do they have a right? No. And the funding, that Title IX that I keep screaming about all over the place and everywhere I go, Title IX, that's something here in the States that pays for our schools' education, or these different title programs from our federal government. And Title IX, which was started to protect us from getting sexually harassed, and still does, has really turned into, you will follow this agenda. And it's not just even in our schools. My husband had to go through a class of this at his hospital. I have a friend that had to go through a class with this. He works for the DOD, Department of Defense. I had another friend that had to go through this who works at Dollar General. I mean, it's everywhere. It's not just our schools. It is absolutely encroaching into everything, to the point now where if you don't call them, again, I'll tell me your name. I'll call your name all day long. But my favorite pronoun is they, them, or we, us, because I'm like, that's a multiple personality disorder. I mean, if you consider yourself a they, them, then you're saying that you're a multiple person, which is a disorder that we can all accept as is a disorder.
It's all a disorder.
I know it is. But that's my favorite one to pick on, because I'm like, are you two people? I don't really understand that. And it's now getting to the point where you see videos of, this is a true story. And I shared it on another podcast about a month ago, where a girl identified as a cat, and the high school actually was even accommodating to this. They put in a litter box. They let her meow for her answers. I was like, this is psychological dysphoria. That you're even going to let this. It's beyond even a trans movement. You're now letting them identify as animals. That child.
I mean, what are these kids going to do when they get to be our age? Mario, what are they like? Are they still going to be using a litter box and meowing for their answers at 50?
Right. And I don't even know. I just don't. It's absolutely more confusion. Just go along. We're going to teach you what you need to know. And, and I just don't,
that's a whole new perspective on being an equal opportunity employer too. Think about that. How would you, as an employer, deal with a person like that?
Who's identifying as a cat or whatever? Yeah, I don't know. Right.
And yet, you have to follow certain laws. you
Right.
know, as a business. And if you have to be an equal opportunity employer. So you got some fool like this come along and say, meow, 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 meow.
How do you
What
how do
does
you
that
even interview
mean?
them? I don't mean to
How do you,
laugh,
yeah,
but then they probably turn around and sue you
what
for
does
not
it
being
mean?
accommodating, so I don't know. I don't know.
I mean,
It's
you
crazy.
know immediately you're gonna get sued. Like that's the
Yes,
whole purpose of behavior like that, is so that
that's
they can go and try and get a job from somebody like you and then come back later and sue you because you didn't understand their meow.
right. Right. You said in the chat, like we've been talking about too, it is absolutely a spirituality thing.
It
And
is 100%.
I've heard this before, that one of the devil's greatest things was to convince the world that he doesn't exist. And I'm like,
Yep.
boy, is that ever. And, it's just one of my things that I love the most after teaching US history is my ninth grader said to me at the end of the year, I go, so what do you think about all this? Because I had them chasing the money when we did the world wars. I said, go find the money. And I put them in groups. Go tell me about it. And, at the end of the year, though, I said, so what do you think about all of this? And he goes, I'm tired of being a pawn in the elite's game of chess. I was like, wow. That was probably
We
the
need to make
best
a
comment
t-shirt
I've
like
ever
that.
heard in my life. He's like, we don't need war. We don't need any of this. And they just move us around like pieces on a chessboard. He goes, I'm tired of being a pawn in the elite's game of chess. I was like, wow, you got your head certain on, boys. You got it straight.
I never
And I
knew
was
that.
just like dumbfounded. I was absolutely thought that was brilliant. Awfully. So I have something really funny, kind of in a way, to share with everybody. I am going to play this little video because we're almost running out of time here, but it's about Common Core. And one thing our government's very famous for too, I was just at a national conference talking about, and we see this in different things, and we see this on Twitter and all these other different social medias, where they're really good about changing the names. CRT, which was called critical race theory, they're now calling either critical consciousness or critical ideology, critical solutions, critical, whatever. They're changing the names. And so when I was up in Ohio, they were saying, well, it used to be called Common Core, and now it's called standards. So that was a prime example how we've seen it, being changed. And so I have a real short clip that I am going to show everybody that's really quite funny, that talks about Common Core and how we kind of are like, what in the world just happened? So I like to leave on a positive note, because this is pretty kind of, we're talking about some, always not the greatest things. And yes, do we have problems, not just here in the States, globally? This is a problem. I'm seeing this all over the place. But maybe give us a little bit something. I always finish the show with a song and try to finish it with something funny. So this comedian talks about a parent's first like introduction to Common Core, and it made me really laugh. So let's show that so everybody can kind of get a little bit of a laugh today. A little bit of one. It also shows actually how bad it is too. But at least we'll get a little bit of laugh out of it. So let me add this to the stream, and I'm going to put this in our stream and pause that. Make this bigger. Give me 1 second to load all this so everyone can see. Okay, good. Everybody can see. All right, here we go. Hopefully you can hear. Okay, here we go.
We're doing homework too. Our daughters starting to bring it all home. Homework's fun. First and second grade was awesome. Third grade, you're like, okay. They throw some stuff in. You're like, oh, all right. All right. It's okay. Learning it earlier than we used to, huh? I don't even know if that's true, but she brought home Common Core math. That's fun. It's a new math they invented. No heads up. Just give it to parents that never learned it. It's just a whole new. I mean, it's unbelievable. Why when they bring it home, you got to watch a 40-minute YouTube video on Common Core math. I don't even understand it. If you know it, if you don't know Common Core, it's just a new math. And the goal of Common Core is to use one sheet of paper for every problem. You just want to keep breaking the problem down. You put the problem at the top, and it just keeps going. And then what's even funnier is you see old math in the middle of it. as you break it down, old math gets in there, and you're like, oh, just do that at the top. I don't even know what we're doing. It's not like old math isn't working. Old math, I don't get incorrect change everywhere. Just going this stupid. It's a long way to saying. I go, it feels like my friend opened it. And you say, can I come in? And I was like, do you mind walking in and coming in through the back door? And you're like, does the front door not work? I'm like, no, it works. I use it. A lot of people still use it. But the new way is to go jump the fence and come in the back and meet me at this same spot.
Oh, sorry, but that is so good. I do know that you know, it's bringing awareness so that there's actually a problem. But it's a funny way to look at it because it's true. I mean, I remember when I got Common Core math, I was like, I'm sorry, why are we just doing regular math? But it made me laugh. It really made me laugh. And hopefully it brings a little bit of light to you. So as we close this off, everyone, Barb, it's been so great to have you, just even chatting with you. I mean, we just are becoming really great friends. And you are a great co-host today, even though we didn't really celebrate you. I mean, everyone truly, if you need something designed, she is your lady. I mean, it's great. I've seen so many different things. Right. So please reach out to that. Again, her website is kindembroidery.com, and she can do product anywhere in the world. Reach out. She's helping me with my school too. We're even working in a relationship to be a future sponsor of our show. And I love that. I absolutely love that. So make sure you check her out. I would love to have you back as well. It is
anytime, Maura.
It's a real pleasure to get to know people, see what we're doing, and inspire people. Maybe embroidery is not for you guys, but she's talked about so many other things. Starting a community garden would be amazing in your different areas, and teaching the kids how to grow their own food. Unbelievable skill to have. Unbelievable skill. And there's so many things. I've mentioned starting a reading program in a library because we know they're not learning it in schools. So, that might be something to do. Also, when I did that program, we would have a day where we created art, and the library would literally put up their artwork and highlight these kids. It was so much fun. They felt like they were award winners, because everybody's pictures was up at the library, and they're like, oh my gosh, please also, please check out our honey sponsor, Be Nourished. It's some of the best honey in the world. I'm just right. I mean, this is some of the greatest honey. And I have, like I said, I've been to South Africa, Ethiopia. Obviously, I was born in Scotland. I've been to Canada, Mexico, Australia. I mean, when I say go travel the world, you really should at least go somewhere different, at least one place. Cuba was eye-opening. So was Ethiopia. But this is some great things. You get 22% off if you go to benourished.com and look into honey. That helps out our show. But just also, it really, really helps us out is hitting whatever the like button is or the thumbs up button, following us, because it just helps our platform get some more awareness and helps us reach more ears, which we really appreciate that more than anything, to be honest. And we have on Liberty, this media that I'm on right now is under Liberty Arise Media. We have programs every single day. Scott brings, that's our producer. He brings a lot more political and world news into the play on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My shows are on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm Headmaster's Homeroom. And then on Sundays, if you want to join me at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I actually teach you how to, like last week, we were doing bread, I believe. I do gardening. I taught people how to freeze eggs and raise chickens. I have taught business plans. I have taught, there's so many things I'm trying to do. This week on Sunday, we're going to do a quick review about business plans again. We're going to talk about gardening because I had some failure there. What do you do after a freeze? What kind of things can you do versus, if you have a small area versus a big area. And then I always cook a little something. I've got some home remedies again for our pets. That was pretty popular. This is with fleas and ticks. So if you've got an issue with that, I'm going to teach you how to make a home remedy for that because we can't leave out our pets. Sometimes we don't want to deal with chemicals, and there's a lot of natural alternatives to that. but it's also to show you what I do in my school, because people are like, well, what do you mean live instruction? We do projects together. We're all on Zoom live, like I am here with Barb, and we're literally doing these projects together, and succeeding, so that it helps with retention, by the way, so they really learn it. And we go anywhere from sculpture to dance to music to creative writing to poetry to embroidery to whatever. I mean, gardening to building your own businesses. And it's just really helpful for our students to know that they're possible, and that we believe in them, and we want them to be successful in their life. No matter what pathway they choose, here's the tools you're going to need to succeed. Right. That's really important to us. So I figured if my students don't know, or the youth don't know, maybe their parents don't know. So I have so many different guests come on Fridays that it's been a real pleasure to have 2 shows now and actually get to teach you guys how to do these things as well. So please check us out. We've got multiple different things going on. Tomorrow, Scott and his wife have a beautiful show on Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time called Around the Family Table, which I love as well. So please just check us out. Again, the best thing you could do for us too is like, share, follow, those kind of things really help us out. I really thank you so much. I appreciate for the chats. I can't tell you how much it means to me to have some interaction with our audience. Once a month, I also bring a nurse on. So if you have any issues with, what did the doctor mean by that? He's there to answer your questions, because we see a doctor now for 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. And then next thing you know, you got all these medications and you don't have a clue. So he's there to answer questions. And that is really wonderful. So we're trying to bring you as many solutions as we possibly can in a world that just wants to not promote any of us. They want to promote an agenda. They want to promote fear. And you know what? I encourage you to go out and talk to other people, get to know each other, find those common grounds. You don't have to agree on everything. That makes the conversation more rich. Just don't threaten each other. Listen to each other. Find a common ground, right? And you'll be amazed at what kind of friendships that you can create. So it's been a real wonderful pleasure, Barb. I can't wait to have you back on, or see you in the litter box, as I might say, as I have the time to do so. It has been a true pleasure to be here tonight, everyone.
And a pleasure. Absolute pleasure as
well. He says, don't shoot each other too. Yes, don't shoot each other. Everybody keep it calm. Keep it calm. Yes. Use your words. Use your words. Yes. And together.
Be kind.
Right. Be kind. Together in this world, we're going to make a huge difference. Barb, is there anything you'd like to tell our audience before you leave? How can they find you? Tell them how to reach out to you.
I do. I started in Etsy, like you said, so I still do have an Etsy shop, which is Kind Embroidery on Etsy. Real easy to find there. And as you said, I just started the website, just barely brand new. I've been running like maybe a week now, and that's kind-embroidery.com. And it'll be the kind you want, the kind you need. Let me help you out. We can always work great prices, great products, whatever you need, I can get. And I look forward to anybody coming to see me, even if it is online.
I mean, as owning a school, I don't have a huge budget. And she's like, let's make it work. And I'm just like, really, really thankful for that. I mean, I love that she's willing.
That's all I need to know is whatever your budget is. And I've been in the industry long enough. I can find the product you need and we can dial it in relatively quickly.
Absolutely. It has been a true pleasure. And guys, that we're working on her being a possible sponsor for the show too, which is really great. We'll have more details as that comes, and we hammer that out so that we could give you a code or we could figure out something. But I love this. We're helping each other thrive in this world, and that's how we lift each other up. Because no matter what we do, where we come from, we're all possible. We're all possible, and great things come together when we find the ability to lift each other up in this world. And that's what we need to do. We do not need to be controlled. We need to find each other and lift each other up, and we can do this. So it's been a real great honor. I will talk to you later. I hope you have the greatest weekend.
You as well.
And thank you so much, sweetie. I appreciate you.
Many blessings.
Everybody say goodbye to Barb.
See you later.
Bye. All right. So before I leave, thank you everyone for joining Hamilton, Headmaster's Homeroom. I'm Lady Hamilton. I always like to finish with a song, and one of my favorites. I just kind of felt I really love this acoustic version, and it is just a really great song that we'll finish tonight out. And don't forget, please remember to like, share, follow us. That really helps us out. If you'd love to come and see me again, I will be here Sunday at noon Eastern Standard Time, and we'll be talking business plans, gardening, and home remedies for our pets. And it's a little bit of a different show. I always start with like these beautiful kids praying, which just rock my world, and kind of more of it's Sunday, right? And just kind of an honor to God for giving me the ability to even bring you this option, bring you solutions, because it's really in my heart to try to help everybody that I possibly can. You can always reach out if you have a business idea or an idea or something you want to even bring onto the show. If you have something you want to highlight, please reach out, because I'd love to have you as a guest. I'd love for us to teach others how to do things. So it's just a pleasure. And you can see, I mean, most of the time I'm running a school. So to do this on my spare time is really a service, and it makes me just happy. So tonight we're going to finish with a song about God. And I really love this version. It's an acoustic version from Struggle Jennings and Caitlin Curtis. So everybody have a great night. Stay safe. Remember that you are possible. And I will see you guys. If I don't see you on Sunday, I will see you next Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let me just load this up, everyone, so you can hear this beautiful song. And thank you so much. It's been it's been great. Thank you so much for coming into our chat. I have had a wonderful time talking with you. It just makes our day when we get to interact with people who are listening and followers. We really, really appreciate you. So I hope you have the best evening or morning. I don't, right? But thank you so much for coming and being a part of our day today. All right, everyone, let me put this on full view so that we can see. All right, have a great night, everyone.
Let's go. The world getting crazy, baby, chill. Don't medicate, just meditate. You waking up now, well, baby, you hella late. Educate, look at what's going on, let it resonate, accelerate. Find your inner hunger like you never ate. Agenda is to push the hate. Separate and segregate, don't celebrate quite yet. The storm is coming, Q, for heaven's sake. Violence that they demonstrate, instigate and penetrate the values of our country. And our God is what they desecrate. My fighters ain't no featherweight. Pulling out the seams of the fabric that they fabricate. They feed us lies, manipulate, intimidate through fear and force, forcing us to sit and wait till we come together, congregate, and then we liberate. Praying that you give me strength to find some love amongst the hate. Marching on the streets of blood, I see the golden gates, troubadour, troubled souls, one of God's servants. Blades out, cut the grass till we see the serpents.
Oh, one day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh, God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
I know the truth is hard to swallow, just digest it. Suspected something's going on, chosen just neglected, deflected by some breaking news. Oh, we just accept it, expected just to fall in line and follow their perspective. Don't question their objectives, but but I got a lot of questions. How these kids molested, but nobody's been arrested. Read it in the Testament, these children are protected. So I'm fighting all these terrorists, both foreign and domestic. Refuse to be directed. Lion, not a sheep, only kneel to my God. So I'm dying on my feet. Silence when we speak, but there's violence in the street. I've been rolling with the punches. I can't take it on the cheap. Nah, drink from a glass half full. I'm optimistic. People are sadistic, so vicious and malicious. Praying for assistance to overcome my position, or I'm gonna start resisting, and then I pray for forgiveness.
Oh, one day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. Need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now. We need you now. Oh, we need you now. One day, one day, one day, I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. Need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.